Hello and welcome to Shimba channel. I'm a Japanese native and a beginner English learner. Japan often has the image of being one of the safest countries in the world. Today, using both real data and my own experiences, I'd like to talk about how safe Japan really is, and what you should still keep in mind when you're here. I think there are several social reasons behind why Japan is often seen as such a safe country. If you walk around the Japanese cities, you will notice that the streets are quite clean. There's very little graffiti or litter, and public spaces are well maintained. In urban areas, there are always people around, which naturally gives a sense of security. Convenience stores and restaurants stay open late. Many operate 24 hours, so there's almost always some activity. That constant presence of people probably helps create the feeling that Japan is a safe place. In fact, in some city centers, there are so many people that the crowds themselves can sometimes cause minor trouble. There are also popular stories, like lost items always find their way back to the owner, or you can leave your bag on a seat in a cafe and it won't get stolen. Those little anecdotes definitely strengthen Japan's reputation for safety. And of course, Japan has strict laws that prohibit private gun ownership, and even carrying knives is heavily restricted. Because of that, it's not easy for ordinary people to get access to things that could cause harm. According to Japan's National Police Agency, the number of recorded crimes has dropped significantly compared to the early 2000s, and violent crimes remain at a low level compared to many other countries. These numbers certainly reinforce the idea that Japan is safe. Another unique point is the presence of koban, or small neighborhood police boxes, located all over the country. Having police officers nearby as part of daily life might also make people feel safer. From these points, it's easy to understand why Japan has such a strong image of safety. But what is it really like when you actually live here? I've lived in Japan my whole life, and honestly, I rarely felt that my safety was in danger. Feeling safe has become so normal that I hardly even think about it anymore. When I was a student, I often missed the last train after hanging out with friends, and ended up walking through the city late at night or spending all night singing karaoke. Even then, I never really felt unsafe. Sometimes I'd walk home alone down quiet street, but it still felt fine. You can even see women walking home alone late at night, and that's pretty normal here. On trains, you often see people sleeping, especially during the commute. I used to nap on the train all the time as a student, and it was never a problem. No one tried to steal my bag or anything like that. Late at night, you might see drunk people sleeping on trains, or even lying on the sidewalk on Friday nights. It's a surprisingly common sight, yet people usually leave them alone. I've even slept through my stop a few times myself. You also see young kids, elementary school students, riding the train by themselves to go to school. And in cafes, people often leave their belongings on the table to save a seat while ordering. In Japan, it's just part of everyday life. I don't do things very often, but I have forgotten items at restaurants or on trains. When that happens, I call the place later, and most of the time they've kept it safely for me to pick up. You rarely see big conflicts or dangerous situations on the street, and when something does happen, police officers or station staff are usually already taking care of it. In my own experience, I've never seen it turn into something serious. So in my daily life in Japan, I really haven't experienced major trouble, and that sense of safety has just become normal for me. What about you? How's public safety where you live? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear. You may often hear stories online about Japan, like if you lose something, it always comes back. But is that really true? Personally, if I find something on the street, I usually leave it there. Or, if it looks important, I will take it to the nearest koban, a police box, or hand it to a station attendant. However, I've heard 3 or 4 stories from people I know who lost their smartphones, and none of those phones were returned. They were all iPhones, so they used the Find My iPhone app to track them, and in every case, the signal was far from where the phone was lost, often in what looked like a residential area. It really seemed like someone had picked it up and decided to keep it. Of course, in many cases, things do get returned, but maybe it's better not to assume that will always happen. So far, I've shared both general impressions and some personal experiences. From all this, you might think that if you live or travel in Japan, you don't really have to worry about crime. But in reality, there are still some things worth paying attention to. In my daily life, I don't see much crime or conflict. But nationwide, there are still incidents of violence, murder, and many other kinds of crime, both big and small. And there are probably many cases that never get reported at all. So we can't say Japan is completely safe. In recent years, some crimes have even been on the rise. When I watch the news, I sometimes feel that I should be a little more careful. You don't need to be overly cautious when living or traveling in Japan, but keeping a few basic habits makes a big difference. At night, try to stick to a well-lit street where there are plenty of people around, and be careful if a stranger suddenly talks to you. Also, Japan, like any country, has safer and less safe areas. So avoid neighborhoods that have a bad reputation. And for valuables like your wallet or smartphone, it's best not to leave them unattended. Keep them where you can see them. These days, even when I'm saving a seat somewhere, I try not to leave my bag behind anymore. So today, I talked a little about how safe Japan really is. It's true that Japan is a relatively safe country, and that's something I genuinely feel in everyday life. At the same time, crimes do happen every day. There's no need to be overly worried, but taking a few simple precautions is always a good idea. How about you? What do you do to stay safe in your daily life? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to share your own experiences, please feel free to leave a comment below. I always enjoy reading your messages and hearing your perspective. Your feedback really helps me improve, not just with my videos, but with my English too. See you next time.